Hello, this is Danny Raymond, the voice behind Ray's Guide. In the Ship Showdown Q&A, they talked about the problems with the Aurora, what needed to be changed, and why it wasn't currently still being promoted as a first choice for a starter package for new players.
In fact, this week we actually did the kickoff for gold standarding the Aurora series. So what do we mean by that? That means giving it all its physical components, updating the dashboard to current MFD standards, fire extinguishers, weapons locker, just fixing all the stuff that's wrong with it that doesn't suit the game today versus when it was made.
And the funny thing is, I was watching it on one screen while looking at my work in progress on studying what an Aurora Mark II would be looking like on the other screen. Because a week earlier, I had a look at a InfoRunners episode with the same premise and thought, what would that ship really be like? And of course, my architect mindset took over and I was off on a beeline to my favorite 3D modeling program. Now, this is not a finished design, not by a long shot. It is the initial proof of concept missing the fine textures and details. Neither is it some prediction about what the Aurora Mark II would have to look like or meant to be some sort of competing proposal. But whoever will be doing the redesign at CIG will be needing to solve the same issues that I was exploring, and so, sort of like the principle of convergent evolution, it might give some hints about the ways in which the new Aurora that CIG will create will be different than the one you see now. So first, what needs to be added, what needs to be removed, and what were the overall limits and goals that I placed on my redesign? So what needs to be added to the Aurora to make it have what we might call the standard set of starter ship features found in, say, the Intrepid and Cutter series? First, a suit locker, second, a gun rack, third, a fire extinguisher, fourth, a fuse box, fifth, a toilet, and sixth, physicalized components for the battery, avionics, power plant, cooler, and shields. Now, what would need to be gotten rid of? First of all, doors on both sides of a ship this small never made sense. Second, the landing fans wouldn't work on an airless environment, which is why CIG hasn't made use of them since. Third, better FPS metrics so that there doesn't have to be such awkwardness in the various entry and exit animations. Fourth, the bespoke cargo boxes. Instead, there should just be a standard cargo grid. And so many models with minuscule differences. This last item leads to the dead-ender problem with the cheapest of starter ships. Since we still don't have any sort of a trade-in program, you have to completely buy your second ship in order to do a broader range of missions than you can do with your first ship. But the cheapest of ships can't earn much, and because it is your first ship, you are caught in a catch.
That's some catch, Catch-22! It's the best there is!
Instead, you should be able to earn enough with your first few missions to upgrade the starter ship to do the broader variety of missions in your improved starter ship. And the initial promotions of the Aurora gave exactly that kind of impression of what you could do with the Aurora. So my goal for the Mark II Aurora is to have just one model with lots of empty hardpoints. If you bought one of the more expensive Auroras, it is converted to a bundle of the base Aurora plus the extra components. And then what were the limits I placed on my design? First, the envelope of the existing Aurora. Total height, width, and length I considered hard limits. Second, I wanted to have enough of the signature cues of the Aurora that it would still be immediately recognizable as a continuation of the same ship line. Third, when I did diverge, I wanted it to be in ways that were more in keeping with the RSI style in other ships rather than less. And fourth, I wanted to still have design cues saying that this is the cheapest ship that RSI makes. So I deliberately avoided some of the cues of luxury and sophistication found on ships like the Meteor and Zeus II. So with that out of the way, the unveiling of my very unfinished design for the Aurora II. I'm suspecting that the first thing you noticed, and not favorably, is how much more bulky it is, and that it's not only inevitable, but the main part of the whole necessity of a rework. All those things that need to be added, with ship components, suit lockers, etc., needed volume that the current Aurora simply does not have. The same thing with more current player clearance metrics. The ship had to become bulkier. I decided to continue with that and made the structural frame larger and heftier and more evident. The prior flimsy-looking fins are beefed up into structural platforms because they're now doing real structural tasks, like containing the 6 rotatable VTOL thrusters that replace the fans, holding the maneuvering thrusters out of the edges of the craft for maximum effect, and distributing the forces from the external pods. Changing to external engines was done primarily to get my new Aurora aligning with typical RSI style guides. Note that every RSI ship done since the Aurora, Constellation, Mantis, Meteor, Apollo, Polaris, etc., all have had external engine pods. The one exception, the Zeus 2, frankly would have been improved both visually and functionally if it had moved the engines outboard and provided more internal space and interest to its plain tortilla chip profile. Extending those now structural platforms forward to integrate them with the cabin area gives even more lever arm to the thrusters, but also forms a stoop so that the entrance of the ship is now a much less awkward animation. I like the way this newer Heftier frame works to give a sense of how this ship holds together through the forces placed on it. Some Star Citizen ships do express their structure from the inside, but few also express it from the outside. And now that I've lowered the ladder and landing gear, you might notice that my Aurora is riding taller above the ground than the old Aurora, and that is because the old bespoke cargo boxes are replaced by an ordinary suspended cargo grid. And that means you need room, not just for the cargo, but the extra height to maneuver it in and out, and for attaching and detaching. And in keeping with the original spirit of the Aurora, as a frame on which modules can be hung, it can go from no cargo to 4 SCU, 8 SCU, and wait for it, 12 SCU in an Aurora. The 12 SCU upgradability is an important threshold because it opens up many more cargo missions. It means that you can upgrade your Aurora to do all the extra small cargo missions and many small cargo missions without having to buy a whole new ship. Since you can get less than 12 SCU cargo missions playing very well with sufficient reputation, the ability to pay to upgrade the Aurora all the way to 12 SCU breaks the catch-22 of the least expensive ships. So let's cover the occupied area of the ship from front to back. And my first choice was whether to get rid of all the struts and go with a single-piece folded glass cockpit like on the newer RSI ships. And eventually I decided to go with removing the vertical struts and not the horizontal ones. The reasons was that I felt that the struts were too strongly associated with the Aurora, and the horizontal struts were always the stronger ones in the design. They also provide an easy way to attach the screens, while at the same time the screens block the view of the horizontal struts when seated in the canopy. Finally, I was looking for visual cues that the Aurora was still the least expensive of all those other RSI ships. I did, however, make the center panel of the cockpit glass wider to give the pilot better unobstructed views, which also widened the cockpit as a whole, which made it possible to include the standard RSI ceiling-mounted spin seat for easy exit and entrance animations. Behind that, in a transition that I agree needs some work, is the hatch. I considered something besides the big circular hatch, but decided it was simply too much a part of the look of the Aurora to change. But to keep with the general bulking of the new ship, I made the shape a deep cylinder. This allows for 2 doors with space in between. In other words, a genuine airlock. But that is only on the port side. The same cylindrical volume on the opposite side is used for suit lockers, gun lockers, and a fire extinguisher. Then behind the cylindrical shape, a rectangular shape. On one side, this encloses a bunk, life support, battery, and personal storage, which also makes this able to be a self-sufficient escape pod. On the opposite side, it includes all the shipboard components, including the engineering display and fuse box. Between these two sides is an aisle, and at the end of the aisle, the toilet to complete the list of things that need to be added to the Aurora. And that's my ideas about what an Aurora Mark II should be, why it's needed, and what changes are needed, and how the results might be both like and unlike the Aurora you are familiar with. And again, this is not a finished design by a long shot. The little details that make Star Citizen ships so engaging up close are missing here and would take many hours to add and refine. So if your reaction is, I think the old Aurora is prettier, well, of course it is. And with weeks of refinement, this one would be prettier too. So with that, let's talk about my channel events. For those who are in Southern California, there's the Raise Guide, CitizenCon Direct Watch Party, and Bar Citizen at Supply and Demand in Long Beach. As of recording, there is less than a week to still get pre-sales pricing on single seats. In addition to watching the event together, there will be plenty of activities and prizes from CIG and myself. We'll have the whole place to ourselves, which is why there is ticket price to cover the cost of the facility and staff, so act fast. And there are sponsorships if you want recognition of your organization or company. Then we have our Grow the Channel Ship giveaways. We have the CitizenCon giveaway for the winner's choice of the Arasta or Merchantman. And we have the IAE Week giveaway for the Starlancer Max. 1 entry per video for those. Members get entered automatically. Everyone else just subscribe and comment, somehow including the secret word. And the secret word for this video is the maximum cargo my new Aurora can be expanded to. Fly safe, keep it real, and I'll see you in the verse. This is Daniel Raymond with Ray's Guide.